Our expert today is my colleague, Kinga, from Microfinance Center. Kinga has over 15 years of training experience. She has conducted training on housing microfinance, energy efficiency, client protection, financial education, and many others. In recent years, she has delivered many online activities, including facilitation of webinars, working groups, online meetings, delivery, online presentation. Thank you, Kinga, for your readiness to share your knowledge. And I think it's from now on, you can take over the presentation.
Thank you, Bartek. Good morning, everybody. It's good to have you here. I will start sharing my presentation in a second, as quick as Bartek will give me the right to do that.
Yes, I am doing this right now. Yes. Okay.
And so let me. So today I would like to share with you some of my experience, not only mine, on how to choose and run online training. So no matter if you are a trainer or if you are, for example, HR manager in microfinance institution, and you need to decide if this training will be effective or not, I think the information I will be providing will be useful to you. If you are a trainer, also please share your experience. It's always good to share among colleagues, and we can all learn through that. So first of all, I said it's about online training, but there is a difference between webinar or online training. So today we are having a webinar, meaning a presentation, which takes place on internet, and you can see presentation, you can see me, you can hear me, hopefully. You can ask questions, you can comment. When you can unmute yourself, you can also comment verbally. And if there are any polls as one of the interactive activities, you can, and I encourage you to answer the poll. So that's a webinar. Webinars are usually short. They should not take longer than 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. If it takes longer, forget that your participants will stay alert and learn more. So webinars, I would say maximum 1 hour and a half. Ideally, a 1 hour, that's the perfect time for the presentation. So online training, it's a process of learning, first of all, where you learn new skills, not only knowledge, and it can help you to do particular job or activity. It's a process. It includes many different learning methods, and it's definitely longer. However, I will talk in a second how long should be online training, because there are some differences between online and classroom trainings. So why I give you this definition? Because I have a question for you. So Bartek will launch now a poll, and I would like you to answer a short question. Have you ever participated in online training? Not webinar, training. Yes, no, I don't remember. So please take a few seconds to answer it. The answers are anonymous, so don't worry. So let's have another 5 to 10 seconds. Have you ever participated in online training? So I'm asking about online trainings, not webinars. All right, I think, Bartek, we can close the poll, and if you could share the results. That would be great. Okay, good. So we have some people who participated in the online training. So I hope you have some also experience to share. hopefully some good experience, and if also some bad experience, it's also a good lesson to us. So during my presentation, please comment if you have other experience. Bartek will be sharing with others your comments or questions. So let's start. So I would like to start with pros and cons of online training. The online trainings became very popular due to COVID-19 lockdown. They were available before, but they were not so common. Since March, many of us were forced to organize online meetings, online trainings. Some of us love it, some of us hate that, but it's a reality. And I believe that online meetings, online trainings will stay with us. We will not go back exactly to the same situation we had before the lockdown, before the COVID appeared in our countries. So in short, what are the pros and cons? I think that's the first question we need to ask if we decide to organize it or buy from an external partner. And so let's start with the benefits. First of all, we can save some money. You can save money on venue. You can save money on transport costs, on accommodation costs, or lunches, coffee breaks, costs like that. You can also save time, time of traveling to the venue. If you organize a meeting online, if you organize a training for example, field staff, they have to travel usually somewhere. So you save that time. You can also have a trainer who is living on the other part of the globe. So he saves also time on traveling, and you save time on the travel expenses. So that's definitely the benefit. Because we save money on travel, it's more ecological in that sense. Our footprint is less visible. What is observed that people are much more punctual for online trainings. No matter which country you come from, usually, at least in Poland, we say that there is like 15-minute time when if the training starts at 11, we can be at 11:15 because it's like first 15 minutes. It's like okay, we can be late. For online trainings, most people register and join sharply at the time, or like 1 to 5 minutes later. The same when the breaks ends, people are on time. If we have classroom trainings, those of you who are trainers, probably you experience that you had to call the participants 3 or 5 times before they join again the classroom. It's also much more accessible to staff, and so therefore the outreach of the training can be much larger under certain conditions. We need to have internet access. That's a minimum requirement, but it's more accessible. We can have more participants at the event than normally we have in the classroom. So more people can join it. There are some, of course, cons of online trainings. So the first one, which is most common mention, is reduced contact with participants. And that's true. However, there are some tricks which we can use to have better contact. Of course, it will not help, to have all those informal discussions we often have during the coffee breaks, lunches. That's definitely something to remember. As I mentioned, internet speed is a must, good internet speed. So if there is no good internet connection, the online training will not be effective. Participants may not hear you, or you may not see participants. So making sure that you have good internet connection, it's a must. It's a precondition for any online training. Therefore, not in all places can be organized. Engagement of participants is a challenge. How to make sure that they participate? You are sitting in front of your computer and they are sitting in front of theirs, and how to make them engage in the same way as during the classroom training. And there are different methods how to do it. And I will be showing a few examples in the second part of my presentation. One of the important things which, as a trainer, we rely on is not only verbal communication, but also body language. And when we sit in front of the computer, definitely body language is reduced. So we really need to think how in other ways we can communicate with participants and see if, for example, they are bored or they are tired, to organize another break. But there are ways how to at least some of those issues addressed during the training. So these are like the main pros and cons. There are also a few others probably which we could think of. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a few points to think if it's worth organizing online training or not, and when it makes sense, when it not necessarily makes sense. Definitely one of the advantages of online training is that you may have people participating in the same training coming from different countries using different languages. Thanks to some of the tools, we can also have translation services very easily adapted in our training. So that's another benefit in terms of outreach, which I forgot to mention. So these are pros and cons. So let's move to online training. One more cons, which is very common and more often, is that people are becoming much more tired quickly during the online training. So, for instance, if you plan or you want to have one-day training in classroom, that's normal, that's standard, and with breaks, we often have these. In terms of online trainings, if you try to plan 8 one-day online training, I think most of the people will be really tired at the end, and the effectiveness of last hours will be very much reduced. So how you plan the online training is different to planning the classroom training. So no matter if you are a trainer or you need to select a training for your staff, for example, if you are a manager and you want to have external partner organizing for your training, first thing to check, how they planned the time of the training. If they think only about, moving classroom training into online without changing anything, that's not a good sign. So, training preparation. We all have to prepare for training, no matter if it's classroom or online. However, there are some differences in what we need to prepare for online training. And for instance, the first one is testing equipment. I know it sounds obvious, but Murphy's Law shows us that if something will get broken. So it's good to check if we have good internet speed. They are different, websites where you can check your internet speed and see if it's enough for conducting training or not. The same with participants. They also need to check it. It's good to have participants' emails to have contact with them. In the classroom training, you can speak to them, they answer. During online training, it's good to have their emails, or even better to have their phones if possible, so you can quickly contact them in case something happens and you need to get in touch with them. It's good to have instructions for participants. Usually, when we organize the training, classroom training somewhere, we send some logistic information. Similarly, here we also send kind of logistic information, just it's different. So, for instance, such instructions should include information how to log in to the platform you or the company is gonna use for the training, with detailed instructions, including print screens. Including the contact if they cannot, for some reasons, connect. Also including information about time, including information, what do you expect, for example, cameras on. And I will talk about why cameras on in a second. So you will not surprise participants if they are at home and they are sitting in their pajamas and you ask them to switch on the cameras. That may be uncomfortable to some people. If they know in advance that this is expected, they will, at least have a nice t-shirt on them. So don't forget about instructions, similar to classroom training, however, slightly different information. Make sure that you email materials to participants. If you are going to use any handouts, for example, case studies, send them emails. Have also the material somewhere in a cloud. So in case they didn't receive email, they lost the email, they cannot access those materials, you can quickly send them links to clouds for them to access it. So have them also ready to share quickly with them. Have technical slides. Even during the webinar, Bartek showed basic slide with information, how to write a question in the chat box or how to unmute yourself. Similarly, the slides should be for any training. And usually we start the training saying, we are gonna have the training in this room. The toilets are on the left next to the corridor. The lunch will be served at the level up. We say these things. Similarly, during the online trainings, we need to say similar things related to the platform we are using. So people can feel more comfortable, especially if they are not used to using online interactive tools. It's good to have 2 sets of equipment. If one will break, you have another set. Also, it can be even a mobile phone. Also, if you are a trainer and you are going to use your computer to write some things down, it's better even to have even your mobile phone as a second equipment, and have your camera through your mobile and mic. And because when you write on the computer, people will hear the background noise of your keyboard. So, and it can be annoying. So then you can mute your computer mic and use the mic from the phone. That's a trick which many trainers use. Also, you can switch the camera view, so from your phone to your laptop. So also it's a little bit more interactive and interesting for participants. When you do the online training, it's advised to have a co-host or co-trainer. Often we have trainings where there are 2 trainers, and in online training is the same or even more important, because there are many logistic technical things which are difficult to manage if you are a trainer and you are also responsible to managing those difficulties. So for instance, if you will have a couple of people who has problems with joining the training, your co-trainer, co-host can help them, can call them, can email them, and guide them how to join the meeting, while you can start the training or continue the session. Also, if you have a short lectures during the training, the co-host can follow the chat box and comments, because comments are encouraged. That's a way to engage people. But to make sure that you do not lose them, have a second person who helps you with that. So that's about preparation. And then when we start the training, it's important, during the training, usually you prepare a contract with the participants. And during online training, it's also encouraged to have similar contract. Some things are the same, some different. When we have a classroom training, we, for instance, say, okay, so please, all people switch off your mobiles. That's a standard. We usually even now sometimes forget to mention, because it's such a standard. So what is important during online training? I encourage to have people cameras on, because you can see people and they can see you. Therefore, you need to have really good internet connection. When you see people, it's easier for you to speak and have an interaction. It's also easier for them if they see each other, so it's more natural to interact. So, and they will stay more focused, definitely. if people have cameras off and it's a 1 day or half a day online training, there is a high probability that people will be doing other things, and effectiveness of such trainings is dropping down rapidly. So keep cameras on.
If I may add something, Kinga, this is also important for the trainer himself, because it's very difficult to conduct the training if you don't see the reactions at all. You know, it's very, very difficult if you don't see anyone and you try to explain something and speak, and it's always also lowers the level of training because of that. You know.
Yes, that's true.
So if you as a participant are interested in a high level of the provided training, you should definitely turn on your cameras to show your face to the trainer, so he or she can see your reactions. Sorry.
Exactly, and it helps people to stay focused. However, I would suggest that you let people know about the fact that you expect them to have cameras on when you send them the letter with preparation letter with this information. That's very important, because otherwise you may have people, you know, if they are staying at home, being in different places, so and wearing different kinds of clothes. So don't surprise people, and insist on having cameras on. The same with the trainer. If you are a trainer, make sure that you are in a room where you can have a camera on, that you don't have, for example, your laundry behind you. That can be fun at the beginning, but later you can get embarrassed. The same with people. Make sure the cameras are on. And then this I would put as a non-negotiable for the good online training, because this is one of the things which helps you to reduce one of the cons which I mentioned, you know, the engagement of people. The second advice to put in the contract, I would say, is to make sure that people stay muted when they do not speak, because this reduces background noises. During the classroom training, we also can observe if many people, you know, start small talks, there is a noise, but it's easier to manage than when we do online training. So when people don't talk, please ask them to stay muted. It's increase the quality and reduce the tiredness of people after a while if there is no background noises. Be punctual. So you as a trainer, it's the same with the classroom training. If you say that the training starts at 9, you start the online training at 9. Especially if it's a longer training, break up into a few days. You know, you set up that culture. So, and if you start with first 20 minutes trying to set up your camera and mic because something is not working, that's already, you know, reducing the quality of the training, and will make also people, okay, so the first 15 minutes is a waste of time, so I can be late 15-20 minutes. So you already lose time. So be ready to start at 9 and start at 9. Make sure that people know and encourage them that they can contact trainer or co-trainer when they are facing technical challenges. People may be shy if they don't understand something. They may think, okay, because I don't know how to unmute my mic, it means that I'm, you know, stupid, or it's such a, you know, basic question I should not ask. No, encourage people with any problems, technical problems, to contact the person who you appointed to do that job. That way, all people will be able to participate in the training more equally. And nowadays, you know, we have we see more and more differences among people. There are people who very quickly, you know, learn how to use online tools, and there are people who need more time. So think about both groups. There are people who don't use computers at all during their workday. So for them, using even connecting for a webinar, it's a challenge, and it can be stress. So try to reduce that stress. Try to make some, you know, funny stories how you couldn't do something, couldn't find an icon on your laptop, just to show them that, they are not the only ones who has such challenges. Yes, Bartek?
May I add something? Yes, and especially not only in this case, but there are also many tools for online trainings available right now. So some people might not have used a particular tool before. So there are some minor differences in usage of them. So this might be also challenging to switch from WebEx to Zoom to Teams to Skype or any other kind of tool. We have also one comment on the cameras on issue.
Mm-hmm.
I will read it out loud. If the number of trainees is large, camera on doesn't work well. The entire screen is filled with the images from the trainers' rooms or figures, especially if the computer screen is used to share slides, diagrams, notes, etc. Yes, this is also important to to stick to the. If we talk about training, I guess we still need to keep in mind that the number of attendees is also limited. It's not like the webinar when you can invite 100 or 200 people. But if we talk about trainings, as you mentioned, Kinga, before, the number can be larger than in the traditional on-site training. But it's still you need to consider that this is a training, and you will expect the interaction with that. Yeah,
I would say that any training which has more than 30 people, it's already very large. The good interactive training is for 15-20 people, and there are also ways how to. You don't need to make people have cameras on all the time, but expect them to have it. When you do breakout rooms activities, make sure they have cameras on, because if they work in small groups, it's 4 to 5 people. That's perfect for a screen. Also, if you are a trainer, use 2 screens. That also helps. On one you have your presentation, on other you have all participants. Also during the training, the presentation is only one piece of the training. So that also makes sure that it's balanced. But yes, if you have 50 people, then it's hard. But I wouldn't say that for 50 people it's a interactive training. You don't do trainings for 50 people with the meaning of training. You can do presentations, webinars, but not so much of the proper training.
Yes, this might also be a kind of a technical question, because it's also a question of adjusting the view during the presentation, during the training. So different tools have different ways of presenting the windows, the user's windows. So this also can be resolved by a technical adjustment.
That's true. So cameras on, it helps to engage people and helps you as a trainer. So that's why it's important to have it. So that's about contract. Of course, there may be other rules, and you can encourage people, as similarly to normal training, classroom trainings, to put on the contract which you have and establish as first point at the training. So these are just a few points which are a little bit different to classroom training. So let's move on. Training duration and break. I said at the beginning that there are some differences. So the online training should not last more than 6 hours. The ideal time is 4 hours. So what to do if you organize, for example, a training for field staff which was taking 1 day? Split it into 2 and do 4 hours one day and 4 hours next day. And here is one important point. You just don't copy exactly the same training, because you cannot do everything in the same way as you do in the classroom. So you have to adjust certain things. The same if you have a company who is organizing for you trainings, and they will say, oh, we will do exact the same training online. It doesn't work that way. Some things has to be adjusted, and if they say they will copy paste, that's a recipe for disaster. Having training split into 2 days also have some advantages, because you do one part on one day, and then it can give people, time to basically digest the information, the experience they had, and you can start the second day with even asking questions. You can also give people homework to do. And remember that it doesn't increase your cost, because you don't have to provide accommodation for people if you do online training. So you split the training into 2 parts, which also may have some advantages. During the online training, breaks should be done every 90 minutes. That's maximum. Also, it's not healthy for your eyes to sit all the time in front of the computers. And also make sure and explain to people that when there is a break, they shouldn't, do other things related to work. They shouldn't answer the emails. They should actually take a break and do something, go around the flat, eat something, drink something. Don't sit in front of the computer, because you will get tired much quicker. Use timer when you set up a break. There are different websites where you can, choose a nice timer. For example, egg.time. You can find a few timers there. So when you set up a break and say, okay, we are having a 15-minute break now, start the timer on your screen and share with the participants. Why? Because normally in the classroom, when we say, okay, it's 15-minute break, people usually forget to look at the time. But then they expect the trainer to say, okay, we are going to start, it's time to come back to the room. When you have people sitting in 20 different locations, you cannot do it. So having a timer on the screen helps people to follow the time. And they will know that if it's 1 minute left, it's time to come back to the computer. You can also use music. For the last minute, you can have some, depending what style of person you are and what type of music you like, you can also start music, which will also make people attention and make them come back. So that's about the duration and breaks. During the training, normal training, we use ice breaks, and the same we can do during the online training. And that's also very important to make people feel and build connections, especially at the beginning. And if it's a group of people who knows each other, it's less important to have ice breaks at the beginning to get to know each other. If the people don't know each other, it's very important, because it's during the classroom trainings, people can get to know each other during coffee breaks, during the lunch. Here, we don't have this opportunity. So you have to plan and create a space for people to connect. You can have a warm-up questions. They are also good to make people feel comfortable with the platform and equipment they are using. You can start with very simple one, starting with a poll, to teach people how to use, where to click with the question, who is a morning person, who is an evening person. You can divide people into small groups. They will then experience a breakout rooms and ask them to introduce each other in the small groups of 3 or 4, and then come back to the plenary and report. They will have to then start using their mics, getting acquainted with the platform, and without, even if they will have difficulties, they will not lose anything from the educational information or experience you plan. So plan the first introduction part with some ice breaks, which also helps them to learn the functions of the platform you are gonna use, or other tools you are gonna use. That's a good way of teaching people in a fun way. You can, if it's a couple of days training, you can. That's a very popular now. You can do a Zoom background challenge. You can, if you finish a training on Monday and the next session starts on Tuesday, you can ask people, tomorrow choose a background picture, for example, your favorite place. And we will start with that. And you can have them competition, and people can vote for the best background Zoom picture. So it's a fun way to getting each other, fun way of again learning some features of the platforms you are using during the training. You can also encourage people actually to stand up from their computers. One of the exercises is home treasure hunt. So for instance, you can ask people, so now take 2 minutes and grab something which is green in your flat or home and bring it to in front of your camera. So people will be forced to get up and look for something green or blue, or grab the food, whatever comes to your mind. So it's again something which makes people move, especially if you see if they are getting tired. That's a good exercise. You can have a coffee time together. You can say, okay, so we are having now 10-minute break. Each of you, please go and prepare coffee, tea, or whatever drink you like, and bring it in your favorite mug. And then we'll see what mugs we are using. So again, you ask people to stand up, prepare something, and come back to in front of the computer. So there is a break, and then also there is a little bit of sharing, who people are and how they are doing. So there are many examples of ice breaks online, and there is more and more basically every day coming. So if you even Google online ice breaks, you will get tons of pages. So so look for it. If you are again hiring somebody to conduct a training for you, check if the person plans such things, because that's important. If it's only if the training is based only on lectures, that's not an effective way to learn and gain new skills. So make sure that if it's you or somebody else is organizing for your training, plans such things as short ice breaks, variety of ice breaks. It's possible. So the same as in classroom training, you have ice breaks. Here you can also have it slightly different. So and online training. So going to a little bit into the methods and methodology of the training. So when I talk about online training, it's the same with classroom training. It should be based on the COLP cycle. I hope everybody are familiar with it. So it's based. We are talking about trainings for adults. Adults have experience, so training is based on people's experience. It can be positive, negative. We use that experience during the training. It allows sharing. Once its experience is shared, or they experience during some activities during the training, you process it through different activities, discussions, group works, questions, answers. Then people generalize that information or that experience. They are drawing conclusions. For instance, well, I did that. For example, they were practicing introductory meeting with the potential clients, and people will be saying, okay, I have to better listen to the client before starting sharing information. So they come up with some principles, they apply, so they can go back to their work or do another exercise to improve, and then they have another set of experience. So that COLP cycle should be in any classroom training, and the same rules should apply to any online training. So there is no difference with that. The difference are in terms of how we do certain things because of the limitations, but also online trainings give us some opportunities in terms of methods we can use. So don't forget about these principles when preparing a training, or when you choose a training from the company. If you can see that model in the training. If not, I would say, well, discuss it, because these are effective interactive trainings for adults. how to do it. So what are the training methods you can use online? I selected a few most common, popular one, and how to do them online. So how you can basically plan interactive training, knowing how to use different methods in the classroom, how to basically move them into online activities. And so let's start with the group work. That's something which is possible, and any training should include. When I said training, again, I remember at the beginning I gave you definition of training and webinar. The training is not a webinar. Training is more interactive. It should allow people to practice, to discuss, whatever. So first of all, select a platform which allows breakout rooms. WebEx, Zoom offers this. So make sure that you use one of the platforms which has such option. Also, if you have external training company or trainer, make sure that they will use such platform and they plan some group activities. It's possible. So you can have a small group work similarly to standard classroom training. You can divide people. You can divide them by yourself, or they can be divided by the algorithm. It's whatever you prefer. Similarly to standard training, make sure that you have clear written instructions for people. I think that if people participate for the first time in online training, having clear written instructions is even more important than if they only hear instructions, because for them already participating in something online, it's a learning experience. So you have to keep that in mind. So write instructions, give them instructions in writing so they can easily look at them. Make sure to set up the time so people exactly know how much time they have. In Zoom, for instance, you can also send instructions to the breakout room so people can see it. You can send them information that they have 5 more minutes. Similarly to classroom trainings in Zoom, you can also move between the groups. So you as a trainer can check what people are doing. So it's a very similar experience to technically in terms of having groups, small group work. So that's something definitely which you can do it, and people can discuss, talk, prepare something in small groups, which then can later be done, summarized in plenary. So exactly the same as in classroom training. So group work can be done. Make sure that you send people reminders that they should, for example, select a person who will be reporting back to the plenary. Individual work, that's something also which we do at the trainings. Again, clear written tasks. Make sure that there is a contact to the trainer. Individual work can be a good exercise for homework if you split a training into a few days. But again, make sure that they can contact the trainer if they have questions or something is not clear. It can be email or whatever communication tool people are using. Perhaps you can ask people, how they prefer to communicate individually. If it's a Skype, Messenger, Viber, or Teams, whatever works for them. So you can also have a individual work assigned to people. Lecture. So if your camera's off, that's more or less if you do a small lecture during the training, which is also part of one of the methods, and it's common. If all people have cameras off, this is how more or less it looks. You talk to an empty room. That's kind of feeling you may have, and that's not the best feeling. Also, you don't know people's reaction, and you don't know if they understand or if if it's clear or they are bored, tired, etc. So keep people cameras on. When you talk to the camera. Don't look so much on the screen. Look also time to time to the camera, because then it's more natural that people feel that you talk to them when they see you. Make sure that the place you sit, there is a proper light, that you are not too dark, not too light. And again, it may change during the day, so that's a little bit tricky. You may start with perfect, light prepared, and then during the day, there will be no sun, and suddenly your room will be dark and half of your face will not be seen. That happens. So it's a matter of practice and also, adapting to situation. If you have a short lecture, you may use PowerPoint. I will not go into details how to prepare PowerPoint. You can find plenty of instructions on internet. Make sure there are pictures. There is no too much text on the slides. The lecture during the training should not last more than 15 to 30 minutes. That's maximum. So similarly to the training. You may ask during such lecture, people to comment something, or you can ask them a question during your lecture and expect their answers in the chat box, or prepare a poll to have a break. If you plan 30-minute lecture, prepare a poll so people can have a little bit of distraction, positive distraction, and encourage questions. So I also encourage you to ask questions or comment in the chat box if you have any. So this way you can stay connected with the people in the virtual training. You can have case studies. That's also a very powerful example of one of the methods which we use. I think it's one of the things which we use during the trainings for field staff or also management. We have case studies. You can share your screen with your case, or you can email them. You can also very easily make a short movie. With today's cameras on our mobiles, that's also easy. And instead of written text, you can basically send people the link to YouTube with and ask them to watch a short movie, or you can show it on your screen, the short movie, instead of text. So yeah, I think it's even easier to do it than in the classroom training, where you need to have projector, computer, then check it, the sound. On the computer, it can be even easier. So case studies, we can do it, and then we can discuss it in a group or small groups. So the same method, just on the screen. One comment: if you use any videos, make sure before that people can hear, especially the sound, because you may hear it when you play on your computer, but sometimes you need to change settings in the platform where you conduct the training to make sure that people also hear them. So that's one thing to test before actual training, technical advice to do it. In worst scenario, you can send people the link where you have that video and they can watch it on their own screens, which is also fine. Discussion. You can also have online discussion, and that's a powerful way of getting people to know each other, to learn from each other, to stay connected, to have interaction. Just a few rules which are more, I think, even more important than during the classroom. Speak or be muted. So again, what I said at the beginning about background noise. Make sure that people know how to unmute themselves and mute themselves again. If you have more participants and you decide that not all share their cameras on, also encourage people when they speak to switch on their cameras. It's better when you can see a person who speaks. It's better experience. If you have a discussion and you want to write down some notes, you may use whiteboards, which are available basically on every now training platform, or even PowerPoint to write down key points. And here, one comment, and I said it already at the beginning, if you are the one who is writing the comments, keep your mic muted, or better, basically use your, for example, another laptop or even camera where your mobile phone, where you can keep your camera on and mic on, and on your laptop you switch off your mic and just share the screen where you write, so that people don't hear the noise from your keyboard. That can be very annoying. Encourage people to raise your hand, exactly like at school. You know, at schools we were encouraged that if you want to speak, you have to raise your hand. And the same is during the online discussions, or even more important. If there are platforms like on Teams, for example, there is a nice function that if people raise your hands, you have them in order. So you know who raised the hand first, second, third. That's a very nice option that it already shows you who was the first. On Zoom, you can also have such, or a WebEx, you have such feature to raise your hand, although it doesn't show the order. So different platforms have different detailed differences. Whatever it's better for you, use the platform which is more suitable for you. Brainstorming, that's another common training method. Which is used, and we can also use it online. That's a very powerful method, and it can be done in small groups or in the plenary. So how to organize it? A part of explaining people what brainstorming is, which you do at the beginning. So you can have written brainstorming. You can use, there are many tools where you can basically ask people to join and write on so-called post-its. The advantage of it is that during a normal brainstorming, if people write things on small pieces of paper, I don't know if you ever experienced it. I experienced many times that I had difficulties with reading sometimes what people wrote. When you use the online brainstorming with written small post-its, it's easier to read. And again, if it's a training in the English, which is not the native language of people, encourage them to write again on post-its. For them, it's even easier because they can quickly check how to write, how to spell certain words, or how to translate. And it will be easier for you to read. It can be part of the activity in small groups or in the plenary that, you have 30 people writing down simultaneously on post-its, on Miro, Mural, or other platforms which allows that. You may have a verbal brainstorming. Then again, use the function of raise your hand, so you don't have a noise, basically, because if 5 people start talking at the same time, you will not understand anything. And you can use whiteboards or PowerPoints to write what people say. You may also encourage, similar to a normal training, somebody from the participants to write down everything. That's also possible. So there are some tools which can make it more interesting. But doing brainstorming, it's a very nice activity. Then people can also, if you have different topics, people can then define group notes which are prepared. One comment here: if you use any tool platform, show people at the beginning how to use it before you introduce any exercise. Ask them to test it. So they can feel comfortable. Quiz tests, it's another good thing to do. Comparing to classroom training, if you do it online, you have immediate answers results, as we did at the beginning of this training. me nor Bartek didn't have to sit and count the votes. It was done automatically. So that's a very nice way of quick checking the knowledge, information, or experience. It can also help to engage people or even create competition. You may have votings, for the best idea or for the best presentation. And you have those options of polls basically now in every training platform. You can also use other external one. Kahoot is one of them I used, which is nice, but there are many others. Lastly, role play. That's also something which you can do during the online training. You may ask, people to do something. So you provide them clear task, for example, in pairs or in group of 3 or whatever. And you can divide them similarly to observers and actors. So you can have, for example, 2 staff members, and you want them to practice preparation of loan application with the clients. And one staff will be the client, another will be the staff, and the third person or the rest of the team will be observers. And you can ask them to keep their cameras on and mics, and the rest of the team having cameras off and mics, and they are just observers, and then you comment. So again, you can have this method easily incorporated into online training. Just remember about clear tasks, and that they need to have cameras and microphones on when they are presenting it. So that's important. As I said at the beginning, during the online training is more challenging to engage people, but it's possible. And if you want to have a good online effective training, you need to engage people. So no matter if you are a trainer or if you are selecting a training for your staff, check if there are methods and approaches which secure that engagement. Otherwise, you may spend money and time on something which will not give your staff anything in terms of knowledge, skills, which you hope to achieve. So make sure that you introduce and you know the platform functions you are going to use for the online training. Test it. Sometimes it's good to test it with somebody, because some functions you can only check if you have at least another person joining. So make sure that you do that. Make sure that the training includes interactive tasks. I just gave you a list of different methods and how you can do it. Make sure that the sessions are no longer than 90 minutes. Otherwise, people will get bored and tired very quickly. Use online tools. There are so many online tools which are being developed or improved that it's changing basically from week to week. So stay tuned on that. Google, if you are looking for something special. Many of them are free of charge with their basic functions. So it actually doesn't have to increase your cost in terms of training delivery if you use basic functions of those tools. So make sure that that you know what is there. So that's it from me. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Kinga. I don't see any additional questions in the chat box, but we actually run out of time. So if you want to stick to the punctuality rule of the webinar, of the training, you probably need to wrap it up right now. So thank you once again. For all the participants, also thank you for joining to this webinar, and just please be that kind and fill in the evaluation survey that will pop up in your web browser after ending this meeting. It is important for us to prepare next webinars within your opinions. So once again, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kinga, for sharing the knowledge, and we'll see you later, probably next webinar.
See you. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Bye.